Happy Groundhog Day. So apparently this morning, Phil saw his shadow and predicted 6 more weeks of winter. Doesn't feel like it here, but wherever you are, no matter what the weather right now, it is either now or very soon time to start your seeds for your spring and summer garden. Today we begin our seed starting series. Now that's going to run through the month of February, so 4 episodes, and by the end of the month, you should be a pro at starting and growing your own seeds. Hey, I'm Brian with Next Level Gardening. If you're looking to join an online garden community that offers tips, tricks, and support to help you take your gardening to the next level, you're in the right place. Get started now by clicking subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss anything. Now let's get growing. A couple of weeks ago, I did a video on the 4 different types of seeds. So open pollinated, heirloom, GMO, and hybrid. So I'm not going to rehash all of that in this video. I'll put a link down below so you guys can watch that. So hopefully you've gotten your seeds chosen and ordered. And once all that's done, it's time to figure out, do you start them indoors or do you start them outdoors? If you live in a mild winter climate that gets little to no frost, then it may be fine for you to start your seeds outdoors. You could start them directly in the ground, or maybe if you have no room yet in your garden because you've been growing all winter in a mild climate and you still have the winter and fall crops still producing, then you might still need to start in some kind of container. If you live in anything other than that type of climate where you really want to maximize your season or length of season, then you want to start indoors. Typically, it's about 6 to 8 weeks before your last average frost date. And that's really the date you need to know, your last frost date, not necessarily your growing zone. However, if you do know your growing zone, let me know down in the comments. Mine is 10A, possibly 9B. I haven't been here long enough to figure it out. We're right on the line between the two, so it might take a couple of years for me to really figure that out. So far, it's looking like 10A. The reason I say you need to know your frost dates rather than your growing zone, especially for vegetables, is because that is for perennials. And all your growing zone tells you is what is the lowest temperature your climate gets or your area gets. And so you want to know if perennials are going to be able to withstand that. Most vegetables are annuals, so it doesn't matter. Now for things like asparagus, artichoke, rhubarb, sweet potato, and fruits, strawberries, fruit trees, things like that, you would need to know your zone because those are perennial. They do come back year after year. But vegetables mostly are annuals. They grow, produce their harvest, and then die. So the big question is, once you have your seeds, is when do I start them indoors in order to be able to put them outdoors at the appropriate time? We put together something that's really going to help you with that. Last year, we put together an automated fill-in sheet where all you have to do is put in your last frost date and it will tell you when to start indoors and when you can plant outdoors all of your favorite types of vegetables. We had over 10,000 people go to our website last year and download that, and I got great reviews on it as well. For those of you who haven't downloaded it, you can, I'll put the link down below, or you can go to our website, nextlevelgardening.tv. When you get there, click on downloads, and it's going to ask you to sign up for a free site, be a free site member. We won't spam you, just ask for your email address. You will get our newsletter whenever we send those out. I think I've sent one thing out in the last year, but that will give you access to our download section. And it's going to have this and any future downloads that go in there, you'll be able to access. Again, it's free, and we're not going to send you a bunch of junk. So once you're a free member, you go into the website and click on downloads, log in, and it's going to give you your average last frost date. And that's an important thing to know as a gardener, but you're also going to need that bit of information for the automated worksheet. You can first find your frost date by clicking here for US, or we also have a spot below it for other countries. And if you're in the US, it's going to take you to the Farmer's Almanac where you can enter your zip code or your city and state. Below that, on this page, we have 3 different file types that you can download. Number 1 is the old school type where you take your calendar and a pen and pencil and figure all the dates out. Or there's 2 automated ones. The first one is for newer versions of Excel. But we found when we did that there were some people that were getting, when they'd type in their last frost date, the boxes would populate with just a bunch of X's. So if that happens to you, you probably have an older version of Excel and you need to come back and download the one for the older version, and that should work just fine. So when you download the file, there's only one place you have to enter the information, and that's right up here, your last frost date. Now I'm going to type in April 15th, which is covering a huge amount of you in the Northern Hemisphere. Now you just want to type in the month and the day and hit enter. All the dates are automatically put in for you. So you're going to know when to sow seeds, the early and late, and when to put out transplants in the garden, early and late. It's that easy. Now, over here, there's an asterisk by some of the crops. Those are crops that like to be planted directly in the garden. They don't want to be sown indoors and then transplanted later. I also have color coding on the left side, which shows cool season and warm season. The yellow is warm, the blue is cool, and the green is a straddle season. So they grow in both seasons, like kale. You know, you plant it in cool season, it also grows in warm. So now you know when to start sowing your seeds and when they can go outdoors for the different types of vegetables that you plan on growing this year. The next thing to know is, what do we plant them in as far as containers? Well, if it holds soil and has good drainage, you can use just about anything. I've seen people start seeds in an old shoe. Okay, so that's probably not like the most popular thing, but you can do paper or plastic cups that you've reused from a party or something. You can use milk cartons, you can use restaurant takeout containers, you can use reuse little 6-pack containers you get from the garden center. You can purchase seed cell trays. The only thing that I've not had great luck with is these peat containers. No, maybe not peat, maybe paper. Anyway, they start to decompose a little too soon. They get moldy. A lot of you guys warned me about that, but I had to try it myself. But you were right, they're not great. With any of these methods, there are a couple of other things you need. You need a watering basin to put your seed trays in, or whatever cups, whatever you happen to be growing in. Seeds like to be watered from below. So you can fill the basin with water, put your seed container in it, let it soak up all that water, then take this out, dump this, all the water should come out of this, put that back in, and this will catch any type of moisture that still seeps out, but that's gonna be very handy. Also, a humidity dome, which is gonna go over your seeds before they germinate. So this is a really good thing to keep moisture in. You don't have to keep going back, checking to see if they're still moist, because that's a critical time. From the sowing of the seed to the germination of the seed, you cannot let it dry out once. This moisture dome will help with that. It's also going to make it where you don't have to keep watering it and maybe dislodge the seeds or whatever. It's a good thing to have. However, the dome needs to be removed once you have germination. Otherwise, it's going to start creating an environment for fungal issues, bacteria, damping off, that type of thing, and you don't want to deal with that. If you don't have a humidity dome, you can also use plastic wrap, or you can slide it into a clear plastic bag. So once you've figured out what you're going to be growing them in, you got to figure out what you're going to be growing them in terms of medium to put in here to grow with. Now, the most popular and probably the most used growing medium would be some type of peat-based product. Now, a word on peat. In places like Europe, peat is actually banned from being used in gardening because the peat bogs in Europe have been so over-farmed that they are literally in danger of becoming extinct. In North America, we're not quite in that situation. Canada has vast peat bogs, and as far as my research can tell, they're doing a really good job of not over-farming it. Now, it does take 1,000 years for peat that is farmed to be replenished. So you hear that and you think, well, how can that possibly be sustainable? Well, only in a place like Canada, where their peat bogs are so huge that every single year more peat is actually produced than farmed, which is the definition of sustainable. Now that being said, I still only use peat products in my seed starting and in like indoor house plant pots. I do not use them in the garden to, amend my soil for any reason. Now, if you are in Europe or some other place where peat moss is on the decline, you definitely don't want to use it. And a good second choice is coco coir. Now that is basically ground up coconut shell, that furry stuff on the outside. And you can get that through the mail. It comes as a very hard compressed block. And then you put it in water and give it a few minutes, kind of move it around with your fingers or something. And it's going to break apart and it's going to expand several times the size of the brick that it came in. It's best to grow your seeds in something other than garden soil. Unless you're planting directly in the garden, then you can do that in amended garden soil. But when you are growing in a container of any kind, garden soil is going to compact in these containers and it's not going to be a very healthy environment for your seeds. Not to mention, if you're growing indoors and you're bringing garden soil indoors, you might be bringing in some creepy crawlies that you don't want inside. So any sterile potting mix will work for this. It doesn't have to say seed starting mix. There's a lot of that marketed, but it's really, in my opinion, overpriced, and it's no different than indoor potting mix. Peat pellets are a great choice for beginners. They are little compact discs, very hard discs made of peat. They're wrapped in a netting, and when you put them in water, they expand several times their original size. And you can plant right in there, and then you can just pick those peat pellets up once it's time to put them out in the garden. It says you can leave the netting on. I've found that years later, so I just peel it off. You put it right in the ground. There's very little transplant shock. So again, for beginners and not so beginners, it's a good thing. Now we're all trying to maybe reduce our use of plastics. What if I told you there is a way to start your seeds in your chosen medium without any type of plastic container? You heard me right. This is a soil blocker. This is a tool that makes soil blocks or peat blocks. I think it works with coco coir as well. And all you do is you take a container of wet peat mixed with perlite, so it increases the drainage. It needs to be really wet, and then you take this tool and you press down into that peat like you're stamping out some biscuits. Scrape off the excess, let some of the moisture drip out, and then you take it to whatever tray, like one of the watering basins like I was showing you, and you squeeze the top of this and slowly pull up on the tool, and it deposits these perfect little squares of soil into that watering basin. And then you can go ahead and plant your seeds in there. When it comes to watering, that's the only issue I had with these. You gotta figure out the watering, and last year I tried these right when I was in the middle of finishing the book and moving. Really lame time to try. But anyway, I saw it, got excited. So you gotta watch with the watering because they are sitting in the tray. You can't take them in and out like you can the other things. So you want to just fill it up about halfway, let it soak up, watch it, and if it needs some more, just give it a little bit more water, and then let it dry almost completely out, not to where it's like bone dry, where you can like feel them and they're light, but you don't want it just staying completely saturated all the time. And so they're not quite as low maintenance as some of these other things, but they are really great for the environment. And because they have no container to pull it in and out of, they're really good for the transplant shock or for eliminating transplant shock as well. So I'm going to try these again this year when I can keep a better eye on them. And if you want to try one of these, if you're adventurous like me, I'll put a link to this down in the video description. Actually, all of these things that I'm talking about will be, I'll put a link to the page on my website, the products I love, and they'll be on there. The last thing to talk about is vermiculite. I did a video on this a couple of months ago. I started some papaya seeds and lettuce seeds, both not easy to germinate in the best of circumstances. And so I was trying that with this vermiculite idea. They did not germinate, mainly because, well, two reasons. The seeds were hard to germinate anyway, so I probably should not have tried those as a starting thing. But I also had to leave town that week, and vermiculite dries out quickly, and it dried out, and so who knows why they didn't germinate, but that's another one that I'm going to try again this month when I can keep a better eye on things. All right, that's enough for this one. For next week, we're going to be talking about lighting, both natural sunlight and different kinds of grow lights for every budget. Heat mats, do you need a heat mat or not? And I'm also going to be building a cold frame. Even though I don't technically need it here, there's a lot of you who need it. And if you want to grow a lot of seeds where it might be cost prohibitive to have grow lights, professional grow lights, or even regular grow lights for that many seeds, a cold frame is going to be a great thing for you. So I'm going to be building that on next week's episode as well. So let me know what you think about this series so far. Let me know what you'd like me to include. We have 3 more videos, and I will take all of those into account, and I will see you guys next time.